When a dying millionaire falls at his ex-wife's door, he whispers "Save me," her shocking choice. It was the kind of night that made shadows dance with menace. The moon hung low, casting eerie light on the deserted street. As Emily stared out from her modest home, a crash shattered the silence. Heart pounding, she rushed to the door, flinging it open. There he was, Jack, the man who once owned the world, slumped against her porch, his expensive suit soaked in crimson. The glistening puddle reflected a grim twist of fate. "Save me," he gasped, eyes wild with desperation. Just moments ago, they'd been nothing but bitter memories, and now fate had thrust him into her life like a cruel twist of a knife. With trembling hands, Emily's mind raced. This was Jack, her ex-husband, the billionaire who had vanished from her life, leaving nothing but pain and regret. She had moved on, or had she? Every fiber of her being screamed to slam the door shut. My God, what had he done? But another part of her ached. She could not let him die here, could she? Outside, an uneasy wind whispered secrets, swirling in the crisp air as if the universe warned her to step back. The distant sound of sirens echoed like a clock ticking ominously toward some unspeakable reckoning. Jack's face was pale, trembling, a specter of the man she once knew, now a ghost pleading for salvation. Emily hesitated, her chest tightening, her breath catching. How could she make a choice like this? The darkness enveloped them both, but in that moment, another thought crept in. What if he knew something? Information about the fortune he'd amassed, about why she really lost him? Her heart raced, not just from fear, but from a flicker of hope, the kind of hope that could dig deep into the wreckage of their past. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Emily's hands hovered above him, uncertainty gripping her like a vice. Should she pull him inside, risking everything, including her carefully rebuilt life? But then there it was again, the glimmer in his eyes, raw and desperate. What kind of trouble had he dragged her into now? The wind howled, a warning siren of the storm brewing just beneath their surfaces. Emily bit her lip, weighing the burden of this decision. Was he just a fading echo of her past, or was he the key to unraveling not just his fate, but hers? In that moment, with the sirens drawing closer, the question loomed large. Would she open the door to a chance at redemption, or seal both their fates forever in a world of chaos and mystery? The air thickened with tension, and the sirens grew louder, piercing her thoughts like daggers. Every instinct screamed at her to shut the door and protect herself, yet there was Jack, vulnerable and bleeding, reaching out to her with a mix of fear and something akin to desperation. "Emily, please." His voice cracked, barely above a whisper. It struck her like a punch. The man who had once wielded power and money so effortlessly was now a broken figure, a soul adrift in pain. In that moment, she saw not just the remnant of a powerful billionaire, but the boy she had fallen in love with, the one who had filled her world with laughter before he turned it all to ash. She took a deep breath, feeling the cold grip of doubt loosening just enough for a flicker of compassion to emerge. "What happened, Jack? Why are you here?" Where I'm from," he gasped. "It's not safe." His eyes darted, fear amplifying his every word. "I need your help. Someone's coming for me." That sentence sent chills racing down her spine. The shadows around them felt alive, closing in. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting some figure lurking in the darkness. Yet nothing, not even the wind, seemed to move. "Help? You're the one who built a thriving empire." She shot back, frustration mixing with her concern. "You think I'll just welcome you in after everything?" Jack winced, trying to sit up, a grimace flashing across his face. "I was wrong, okay? I pushed you away. I was caught up in a world of greed, and now it's all crumbling. if I die tonight, you'll never know the truth. The truth. The word echoed between them, heavy and electric. Her heart raced. What truth? What had he hidden from her? We had it all, Jack. You had it all. And you threw it away. The bitterness bubbled over as she felt the weight of the past rearing its ugly head. Emily, I lost everything, he begged, struggling to focus on her. You have to trust me, just let me in. The sirens wailed closer, and time seemed to stretch, each heartbeat echoing in her ears. She had spent years forgetting him, rebuilding, healing. But the raw pain in his eyes, that flicker of vulnerability, pierced her heart. Please, just one chance, he rasped, desperation thickening his voice. If I don't make it, they'll come for you too. An icy dread filled the space between them, threading through her veins. Who? Who's after you? But he wouldn't answer. Instead, he collapsed back against the porch, labored breaths punctuating the silence. Something dark loomed beyond him, something that seemed to creep along the edges of her sanity. She caught a glimpse of movement at the end of the street, shadows, shifting closer, stalking them like vultures. Panic bubbled in her throat. The choice loomed larger than before. To reach out and save him could mean opening Pandora's box. Breathless, she weighed her options. Her mind screamed for safety, but her heart fought back. What would be left of her if she turned away again? Suddenly, the dim light of headlights cut through the night, illuminating the figure standing at the end of the driveway. Fear surged through her, striking a new chord of urgency. Emily, Jack whispered, eyes widening in horror. Before she could react, the headlights flared, casting an ominous glow on the approaching figure. This wasn't just about justice or past wounds. A chilling reality dawned upon her. She was entangled in a web that reached far beyond her own broken history. Who was coming, and how could she protect herself and Jack from a fate already unfolding in front of her? As the figure drew closer, she made her choice, but could she face the consequences of that choice? The headlights cut through the fog like a blade. Emily's heart raced, thrumming against her ribcage as she squinted into the blinding light. Was it friend or foe? The figure stepped closer, breaking free from the shadows, and her gut twisted. A tall man in dark clothing, face shrouded in a hood, walked toward them with measured ease. Something about his stride sent a surge of panic through her veins, predatory, confident. Everything in Emily screamed that this was not a mere visitor. Emily. Jack's voice rose, sharp and urgent. Get inside. Lock the door. His words snapped her back to reality, igniting a fire of instinctual fear. The front door loomed behind her, a fragile barrier between safety and chaos. Yet she hesitated, her feet frozen in place, a storm of conflicting emotions swirling in her chest. The figure slowed to a stop, studying Jack with a predatory gleam in his eye. You've made quite the mess, haven't you? He taunted. His voice vibrated with a chilling familiarity, like a long-buried memory clawing its way back to the surface. Who are you? Jack spat, his composure crumbling further as he reached out toward Emily. But she could see the truth in his body language. He was terrified. Just someone who's been looking for you. The man stepped forward, pulling back his hood to reveal a face lined with scars and deception. You've got friends in high places. People who don't take kindly to betrayal. Emily felt her breath hitch, uncertainty gripping her throat. What does he mean, Jack? The panic laced her voice, demanding answers that she feared would unravel everything. Run, Emily. Jack shouted, desperation lacing each word. You can't get involved in this. You need to go. But she didn't move. She couldn't tear her gaze from the man whose eyes glinted with malice. Don't you want to know how he fell from grace? Or why he's bleeding on your doorstep? The stranger sneered, taking another step closer. He had it all, just like you did. And then he lost it in the most beautiful way imaginable. Jack recoiled at the man's words, horror playing on his face. That's not true. I'm not the man I used to be. With each second that passed, the tension in the air grew thick, wrapping itself around Emily's heart like a vice. She felt torn between the past that haunted her and a future that dangled precariously before her. "Please, Emily, just trust me," Jack pleaded again, his voice breaking. She was drowning in anguish made worse by the man's brazen smirk. "Trust? This is about survival." He turned to Jack, savoring every moment. "You thought you could play with fire and not get burned? You're not as smart as you think. But don't worry, I'll make it quick." Suddenly, the figures of sirens began to fade into the backdrop, trailing off into the distance. Time slipped through her fingers like sand, and the weight of the choice hung heavy between them. Emily could feel the heat of adrenaline coursing through her veins, sparking an instinct she didn't know she had. She had shattered her own life to escape him once, but now, standing at the crossroads again, she could feel the pull of loyalty. "Get away from him," she shouted, finding her voice, her body tensing for action. "Emily, don't." Jack's eyes widened as the stranger laughed, a malicious sound that echoed through the stillness of night. She glanced at Jack, his wrecked body, the raw pain in his eyes, the need that called to her. As the man lunged, the world narrowed into a single moment of clarity. She made up her mind. But would she really save him this time, or was she walking into a trap that would cost more than she was willing to pay? With one split-second decision weighing heavily on her, she took a step forward toward either her salvation or her doom. What awaited her on that path? The air crackled, and as shadows closed in, she braced herself for the storm to come. What were the ghosts that haunted Jack, and when would they finally catch up with them both? The moment seemed to stretch, the air thick with impending violence. Emily's heart thundered in her ears as she took a trembling step toward Jack. The hooded man lunged, but she moved faster, positioning herself between them as adrenaline surged through her veins like wildfire. "Stop!" she shouted, feeling the weight of her decision crashing down. She could hardly recognize her own voice, sharp and unwavering, despite the fear wrapping around her like a cold embrace. Jack looked at her, confusion and gratitude flickering across his face. The stranger halted, his expression morphing from surprise to irritation. "What a fool you are, Emily," he spat. "You think you can shield him? You've no idea what you're stepping into." A rush of defiance coursed through her. "Maybe I don't, but I'm not letting you hurt him." Jack's eyes softened, an unspoken appreciation swirling there, but the stranger only laughed, a cruel sound that echoed off the darkened streets. "This isn't a game. People like me don't play by your rules. You really don't know who you're dealing with." "Then tell me," she countered, her voice rising, shaking with a mix of fear and determination. "What does he owe you? What does any of this mean?" "Jack," he said, brushing off her question. "You should have stayed hidden. You thought they'd forget you? That you could just run away?" He stepped closer, menace dripping from his every word. "They want retribution, and you're the last name on their list." "Retribution?" Jack whispered, the color draining from his face as realization dawned. There was a raw vulnerability in his eyes, a flicker of the man he used to be. "I didn't mean to hurt them." "I doubt that given the blood on your hands," the stranger sneered, taking a step forward again, but Emily stood firm. "You're not going to hurt him." Her pulse pounded in her throat. This was more than a fight for Jack's life, it was about her choosing to reclaim her own. In that charged moment, the faint wail of approaching sirens pierced through the tension of the night. They were fleeting, shadows of hope rushing to close in, dragging her back from the abyss of uncertainty. The danger felt electrifying yet tenuous, like a tightrope stretched over an empty chasm. "Run, Emily," Jack urged again, but she shook her head, refusing to leave his side. "You don't understand. They won't stop with him if I leave." The man's patience frayed. "Your window is closing, darling. Get away while you can. You think heroics will save you?" His voice had become low and dangerous, laced with an undercurrent of threat. Feeling lightheaded, she knew something had to be done. With a shaky breath, she stepped aside to create a barrier between Jack and the man again. Leave him alone. If you want me, then take me. The laughter that erupted from the stranger was unsettling, reverberating through the stillness. You're playing a dangerous game, Emily. If you think you can handle the fire, the sirens grew louder, drawing closer, promising salvation or chaos. Emily's heart beat faster. Jack, tell me the truth. What are you involved in? She asked, desperation leaking into her voice. Before he could reply, the man shifted, and in that fraction of a second, she noticed the glint of something metallic in his hand, a weapon. Time slowed as she realized just how dire the situation had become. Trust me, get back. Jack shouted, but her instincts had kicked in. She wasn't leaving. Not now. Suddenly, the world erupted, the sound of breaking glass, screams, and chaos surged forward as the man lunged again, unrestrained. Driven by a primal urge, Emily stepped closer to Jack, caught in a nexus of past choices and the harsh reality of the present. Would they survive this night, or would the shadows consume them both? Emily felt the ground shift beneath her, everything was teetering on the edge. What was she truly getting into, and would her choice cost her more than she could bear? The sharp snap of a gunshot shattered the night, piercing the air with a chilling finality. Emily's breath caught as the hooded man's body jolted backwards, his weapon clattering to the ground. She could barely process what had just happened, her mind spinning like a top ready to topple. Get down! Jack yelled, pulling her toward the ground just as the panic erupted fully around them. Shattered glass lay scattered, reflecting the flickers of the approaching lights. More voices flooded in, a chaotic surge of commands and confusion. Emily felt the concrete scrape against her skin as they both hit the ground. Her heart raced. The warmth of Jack's body next to hers reminded her of what was really at stake. What just happened? She gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Someone shot him, Jack replied, glancing toward the now motionless figure of the stranger sprawled on the ground. He must have had enemies he didn't expect. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. The reality of their situation clung to her like the damp fog in the air. They were now targets, and the danger was far from over. The sirens wailed closer, but the arrival of help felt more like a warning bell foretelling more chaos. Around them, shadows danced in the flickering light of the street lamps as figures emerged from the darkness, drawn to the spectacle. Heads turned, curiosity blending with fear as a small crowd began to gather. Whispers spread like wildfire. Who were the unknowns? What had triggered the violence? We need to move, now. Jack insisted, gripping her arm. Emily felt the heat of his urgency, intoxicating and terrifying. But she couldn't tear her gaze away from the body lying there. Was he truly dead? Come on, Emily. Jack pulled her to her feet, his eyes darting nervously. The disarray around them was undeniable, suffocating. We can't stay here. People started to scream. They didn't trust what had just unfolded. Fear and confusion twisted into a palpable anxiety. Emily's gut wrenched. She was already entangled in this nightmare. Would running just lead to more unknowns? Where do we go? She shouted, her voice rising over the swell of chaos. Anywhere but here. Jack urged, and in that moment, she saw it, the flicker of desperation crossing his face. He was truly terrified. Not of just the hooded man, but of the past he couldn't escape. As they backed away from the scene, Emily realized this was more than a random encounter. She had stepped into a world far darker than she could have imagined. Secrets hung thickly in the air, weaving through the crowd like a silent predator waiting to strike. Jack hesitated momentarily, casting a glance back at the fallen man, his face contorting with emotions, guilt, fear, and something deeper. Emily could almost see the memories flash behind his eyes, shadows of a life she couldn't comprehend. Emily, we can't let them take us, he said, gripping her tightly. They know who I am, and they won't stop until they get me. An icy realization washed over her. This wasn't just about them anymore. They were caught in the crossfire of something much bigger and more dangerous. The air around them crackled with intense energy as she caught the eyes of some bystanders, uncomfortable and judgmental, a harsh reminder that they now belonged to a story unfolding against their will. "Then we fight," Emily declared, determination igniting in her chest. Jack's gaze softened. "It's not that simple," he said, but she could see the flicker of agreement in his eyes. But before they could turn to flee, a powerful voice broke through, sharp as glass. "There's nowhere to run, Jack." The lead detective emerged from the gathering crowd, authority radiating from his stance. His presence sent shockwaves of fear through Emily while Jack stiffened beside her. "I'm afraid you'll need to come with us." The air turned electric, charged with tension as the weight of their reality crashed down again. The whispers of the crowd grew louder, curiosity morphing into speculation. For Emily, time hung heavy. She had to decide her next move. Was she ready to dive deeper into the shadows in pursuit of the truth? Or would this be her moment to slip through the cracks before the web tightened around them? As they prepared to confront the man who was supposed to save them, the question loomed large: who was really hunting whom in this deadly game? The detective's eyes bore down on Jack and Emily, his gaze unwavering, like a hawk ready to strike. Emily's skin prickled, sensing that their fates were clinched in the iron grip of this man. She caught a glimpse of the crowd, faces twisted in shock and excitement, a soap opera unfolding before their eyes. "Jack, we can't go with him," she whispered urgently, the panic clawing at her throat. "What if he's part of this?" Jack's jaw tightened, and for a moment, she saw the struggle playing out in his features. He was a man trapped between his past and an uncertain present. The sirens grew louder, threatening to shatter their moment of pause. The detective stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a dark secret. "You're both in danger. The police can protect you if you come with me." Protect them from what? 1,000 thoughts spiraled in Emily's mind, each one heavier than the last. She had trusted Jack but couldn't shake the feeling that they were being dragged into a deeper pit. "No." Jack's voice rose above the din, fierce and resolute. "We're not going anywhere with you. Not until you tell us the truth." The detective's lips curved, a slight smirk teasing the corners. "You think you can handle the truth? There are some things you're better off not knowing." Emily's heart raced. Every hair on her body stood on end, a warning against the curiosity that was bubbling to the surface. She took a breath, trying to ground herself. "What truth?" she asked, the words spilling out before she could reel them back in. But the detective's eyes shifted suddenly. He wasn't looking at her. The tension in the air thickened, and Jack lowered his gaze to the ground, despair etched in his features. "Emily," he started, the plea in his voice raising alarms in her mind. Before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from a nearby alley, shattering the fragile calm. A man dressed in all black stumbled out, breathless, having just witnessed the scene unfold. "They're coming. We have to move." The detective's expression turned serious. "Get them out of here, now," he barked, his authority cracking through the chaos like a whip. Emily's mind whirled. The bystanders were gasping, but the urgency in the man's voice sent a jolt of fear straight through her. The detective turned sharply to them. "This isn't a suggestion. We don't have time." Jack grabbed Emily's hand, and she felt the desperation pulsating between them. "Where do we go?" she asked, wild-eyed. "Not far," the man said, glancing over his shoulder. Shadows pooled in the alley, dark shapes shifting closer. "Trust me. We don't want to stick around to find out who's on our tail." A knot lodged in her stomach. Trust was a currency she couldn't gamble with. Jack squeezed her hand tighter, his expression torn between hope and dread. "We have to try, Em. We can't let them win." The crowd was dispersing hastily, the excitement replaced with a primal urge for survival. Emily took a deep breath, weighing her options. She could run, but what if Jack was right? Was risking it all the only other option? With the thudding of her heart echoing through her ears, she nodded, the decision burning deep within her gut. Okay, we'll go. But you have to promise to tell us everything later. The man nodded, already moving toward the alley, a few steps ahead. As they slipped into the darkness behind him, Jack's breath whispered against her ear. This could be a mistake, but I won't let anything happen to you. The alley swallowed them whole, cobblestones cold beneath her feet. The shrill but distant sound of police sirens faded behind them as they ran deeper, only to find an unexpected figure waiting ahead in the shadows, cloaked in mystery. Welcome to the real game, the figure grinned, an unsettling resonance to it. Emily's stomach dropped. What had they stepped into now? The chilling question echoed in her mind. What kind of game was unfolding, and who was really pulling the strings? The figure leaning against the wall seemed to materialize from the shadows, eyes flashing in the dim light. You two are quite the hot commodity, they said, voice smooth and laced with danger. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this person had crossed boundaries she didn't even know existed. Jack stepped protectively in front of her, defiance radiating off him in waves. Who are you? He demanded, standing firm despite the fear in Emily's eyes. I'm someone who knows more than I ought to about your current predicament, the figure replied, pushing away from the wall and stepping closer, their movements fluid. A tight black jacket clung to their slender form, hinting at a physique trained for agility rather than brawn. You're both on borrowed time. You need information, and I need to make sure you understand the stakes. What stakes? Emily interjected, voice colder than she intended, but her pulse raced. She exchanged a glance with Jack. They were a duo tethered by terror, unsure of who to trust. The watchful eyes of those who want you silenced are upon us, the figure said, looking over their shoulder as if sensing ghosts lurking in the shadows. I can lead you to safety, but only if you're willing to trade something of equal value. Jack's brow furrowed. You're asking us to bargain with our lives? The figure's lips twisted into a smirk. Not just your lives. Your pasts. Secrets have a way of biting back when left untold. Emily felt the weight of those words settle like a stone in her chest. What secrets did Jack harbor? What did she not know? The question hung in the air, thick like smoke, and she could see Jack's breath hitch at the thought of past revelations. Why should we trust you? Jack bit out, fists clenched at his sides. Because trusting me might be your only option, the figure shot back, their voice growing tense. They're closer than you think. All your lives could hang in the balance if you choose wrong. And that when a loud noise startled them, a metal clang echoing through the alley. Emily recoiled, heart pounding in her chest. A group of shadowy figures emerged at the far end, gliding across the cobblestones like phantoms. They were closing in, intent and dangerous. Go. The figure from the shadows commanded, urgency spiking in their tone. There's no time. Follow me. Jack grabbed Emily's hand, pulling her along, adrenaline rushing through their veins as they sprinted deeper into the alley, following their mysterious guide. It twisted and turned, a labyrinth that concealed their pursuers. Each breath felt ragged, laden with fear. The pounding of feet seemed to echo, taunting them as they moved further away. Where are you taking us? Emily gasped, glancing back nervously. The shadows flickered ominously behind, but she couldn't help but wonder about the figure's intentions. To a safe place for now, the figure said, eyes narrowing. But if I were you, I'd prepare for the truth to hit you harder than a freight train. As they reached a dead end, the figure halted, turning to face them. The walls loomed tall and unyielding. Emily's heartbeat thundered in her ears. What's the truth? She demanded, voice trembling yet resolute. The figure paused, a dark glimmer in their eyes. Everything you think you know is a lie, and unraveling that lie will lead to your freedom. Or it could destroy you. Jack frowned, tension escalating between them. What does that even mean? But before a response came, the sound of footsteps echoed ominously nearby. Emily's breath caught, she could almost feel the impending danger pressing down on them. "Get ready," the figure said, shifting to shield them, preparing for a confrontation that could redefine everything they believed. "They're coming, and you can't go back now." A shiver ran down Emily's spine. What kind of game had they truly stumbled into? And more importantly, who exactly were they up against? The figure squared their shoulders, eyes scanning the shadows as the footsteps grew closer, rhythmically echoing through the alleyway. Jack tightened his grip on Emily's hand, a subconscious plea to lean on him, to trust his instincts. They stood frozen, hearts pounding in unison, as every second stretched like a taut wire about to snap. "Back away," the figure warned, voice low, almost growling. "No matter what happens, stay behind me." A light flickered in their eyes, and suddenly, Emily understood, this wasn't just about survival, it was about exposing the kind of truth that could rip their lives apart. Jack's gaze darted to the alley's exit, uncertainty twisting in his stomach. "What if we don't want to know?" he whispered, voice tinged with fear. Emily caught his eye, seeing the flicker of hope and terror. "Then what?" "Let them catch us. We can't go back." She felt her breath quicken, the urge to flee battling with the reality that there was nowhere left to run. A shadow detached itself from the group, emerging into the dim light, revealing stark features. "There they are." It was a rasping voice, dripping with malice. The other figures shifted, revealing faces cloaked in menacing grins, each igniting a flicker of fear in Emily's chest. "Who are they?" Jack demanded, his tone sharp as shattered glass. "Enemies," the figure murmured, a flash of anger crossing their face. "Automatic instigators. But what they really want is something stolen. Something you have." "What do we have?" Emily breathed, unsure if she could handle a truth that teetered on the brink of unimaginable. "Information. A secret worth more than your lives," the figure replied, mind racing. "You both know more than you realize, it's all tied together, a thread waiting to unravel." Suddenly, a sharp click echoed through the air, metal against metal. Emily's gaze snapped forward just as one of the figures stepped closer, a blade gleaming in their hand, reflecting the flickering light from overhead. "You're coming with us," the threat hung heavy, suffocating, as the shadows slowly converged. "No!" Jack shouted, stepping in front of Emily. The fierce protectiveness ignited within him, a wild emotion that could either fizzle or explode. "You don't have to do this." The tension escalated, suffocating any notions of escape. "We don't have time for your heroics," the figure warned Jack, fingers twitching as they prepared for confrontation. But something unexpected happened. In the sudden chaos of shifting, the darkness flared as Emily found herself face to face with a flicker of recognition in one of the pursuer's eyes. A haunting familiarity pulled at her mind. "Wait," she whispered, heart racing. "Is that?" "No, it can't be." "Keep your head in the game." The figure shouted, but Emily was lost, the moment stretching as memories clawed their way back. Flashes of dreams, kindness, betrayal, and buried truths surged through her, then the first howl of danger summoned her back. Without thinking, she lunged forward. "You don't understand." She shouted into the dark, a barrier of desperation forming around her. "You don't know who I." The brute force from behind pushed her aside, and Jack's hand slipped away, the next moment swallowed by chaos. A clash erupted, metal on metal echoing against the alley walls, drowning out her thoughts. "Jack!" Emily screamed, panic gripping her, as she was swept into a whirlwind of conflict. The figure clashed with the shadows, each sound igniting pure terror in her veins. "Run!" the figure shouted, shoving her toward a nearby doorway, desperation in their voice. "Now!" But as she darted for the opening, she turned back to see Jack grappling with the blade wielder. Fear crashed into her, as reality whispered the ugly truth. What if she could never get it back? In the throes of terror, she pushed through the door, knowing full well that something bigger and darker awaited them all. But her heart was a pendulum, swinging between desperation and a gnawing certainty. What kind of secret could she have that might change everything? The answers lingered like ghosts in the shadows, ready to reveal themselves. But would they still be standing when the truth came crashing down? As the clash of battle raged, Emily hesitated on the threshold, heart pounding, knowing she had to decide. Should she flee? Or should she turn back? Time hung precariously in the balance, urging her to choose wisely, choose now. Emily's breath escaped in ragged gasps as she stumbled through the doorway, her mind racing. The heavy thud of boots echoed behind her, the chaos still raging just outside. She edged further into the darkness of the interior, heart pounding as the events of the last few moments replayed in her mind. Jack. Where was he? The sterile smell of old wood and dust filled her nostrils, grounding her just enough to push back the rising tide of panic. She pressed her back against the cold wall, ears straining for any sound that could reveal whether Jack was okay. The world outside felt infinitely far away, a distant echo of danger. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence. You're in real trouble, aren't you? A shadow entered the room, and Emily squinted in the fading light as a figure emerged from the gloom. Who? She stammered, her heart racing again. The person stepped forward, lean and tall, with a face half obscured by a hood. Calm down, the figure said, holding up both hands in a gesture of peace. I'm not here to hurt you. I might actually be your only chance. Emily's instincts fired, suspicion flooding her senses. And who are you? Her voice emerged as a whisper, wary of revealing too much. They call me Theo. I'm trying to help, he replied, stepping into the thin stream of light. The sharp angles of his face became clearer, the determination in his eyes unmistakable. You need to understand something. What's happening out there is just the beginning. Beginning of what? She asked, forcing herself to breathe, every nerve coiled tight with anxiety. The group that's after you, they're not just thugs. They're tied to something far more dangerous, Theo explained, his voice low but urgent. And you and Jack, he paused, letting the weight of his words settle. You both hold a key to keep them from unleashing hell. Emily felt her stomach twist. Could Jack really be in the center of all this? That's why they want you. They think you have information essential to their plans, Theo continued, his eyes locking onto hers, fierce and unwavering. You have to trust me. I've seen the darkness they can unleash. But I don't know anything. She shot back, frustration bubbling. I'm just a pawn in a game far more complex than you can fathom, he interrupted sharply but softening slightly. But one that could turn the tide. You need to make a choice, Emily. You can run, hide, and hope they don't find you, or you can face this head-on. Panic twisted in her stomach like a knife. What choice? She barely knew anything about this war or the people drawn into it. What if I don't choose? She asked, voice trembling, seeking a way out that didn't involve conflict. Theo's gaze softened, but the urgency filled the room with a frigid chill. Then they will choose for you. And it won't end well for anyone. A faint noise pricked her attention, a scuffle, a crash. Emily's heart raced again. Was Jack okay? The question burned at the edges of her mind, a flickering candle in the tempest of chaos. I have to go back, she breathed, more to herself than to Theo. No. He shouted, reaching for her. You don't understand, but she was already moving, driven by sheer instinct. Emily. Wait. Theo shouted, desperation hardening his tone. Ignoring him, she sprinted back to the door, adrenaline propelling her forward. As she pushed through, the scene outside unfolded like a nightmare. Jack was barely holding his ground against two attackers, and the glint of metal was flashing dangerously close. Jack! She screamed, and the words sliced through the air, granting her enough courage to leap into the fray. Jack's head snapped up, eyes widening. Emily, no! He yelled, but she wasn't stopping now. She had to help him, even if the truth behind all this loomed ominously in the shadows. A flare of hope was followed by an encroaching dread as the figures shifted, turning their attention toward her. Everything felt fragile, and she realized she wasn't just stepping into a fight, she was delving deeper into the very revelation that might shatter all their lives, and just then, in the chaos, she spotted it. The familiar glint of metal, not far from where Jack was wrestling. Her mind spurred with action. One truth screamed louder than everything. She might just find out what she needed to uncover, but was it too late? The air crackled, and just as she reached for the weapon, the ground beneath them shifted, chaos erupting around them into an unfathomable tempest. Would they survive this onslaught? And could the truth they uncovered ultimately bind them or tear them apart? A new darkness loomed just beyond what they could see, ready to reveal the consequences of every decision made. The chaos turned around Emily like a violent storm. Everything moved in slow motion as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She lunged for the weapon, her fingers grazing its cold surface, when a shout pulled her back into the harsh reality of the moment. "Emily! Get away!" Jack's voice echoed, a fearful plea cutting through the noise as he grappled with the attackers like a man trapped in a nightmare. She could see the struggle etched onto his face, the weight of their past clashed with the urgent need to survive. Fear gripped her chest, but she had to act. With frantic determination, she grasped the weapon tightly, feeling the weight shift her focus. "Jack," she called again, her voice fierce, unwavering. "I'm here. Let us fight together." The moment hung suspended, a whirlwind of shadows and looming terror. Jack's eyes met hers, a flicker of surprise followed by that unmistakable spark of hope. She could almost see the gears turning in his mind. Could they really face this together? Just as the attackers turned their focus on her, the air shifted, a figure emerged from the darkened corners of the alley. Theo. His face was resolute as he charged forward, a steadying presence in the chaos. "Back off," he shouted, eyes blazing like fire. The attackers froze, glancing between Emily, Jack, and Theo. The uncertainty shimmered in the charged space, a moment before the flames ignited again. "Stay behind me." Theo thrust his body forward, shielding them both, arms poised for a fight. Jack swept in beside them, determination flooding his voice. "We need to move, now." And at that moment, they became a unit, 3 hearts beating to the same frantic rhythm of survival. Theo launched toward the main attacker, confidence igniting his strikes, while Emily found herself racing alongside Jack as they pushed deeper into the dark alley, weaving through a realm of chaos and danger. "Which way?" she gasped, feeling the heat of the fight pulse around them. "Trust me," Jack urged as he pulled her to a hidden doorway, trapping the shadows behind. They stumbled inside, breathless and wild-eyed, slamming the door shut. But the thudding footsteps grew louder, echoing like a heartbeat outside. "We're not safe yet," Theo warned, glancing toward the door. "They know you're here. Do you think they'll stop at anything?" Emily breathed, her heart pounding as she met Jack's gaze. She could see the fire of determination mixed with fear. They had come so far and yet stood on the edge of a precipice, with nowhere left to run. "What's going on?" Jack demanded, a furious whisper like a raging storm. "What do they want from us? What do I have that they want?" Theo took a deep breath, tension coiling tighter around them. "It's not about what you have but what you know. You both hold secrets, keys to a game played at your expense. Choices have consequences." Emily felt her throat tighten. Could the truth really be so terrible? And what if we don't know what we're holding? The walls seemed to pulse with the tension of unfinished truths. Before anything more could unravel, the sound of pounding fists echoed on the door, urgency piercing through the air. "We have to find a way out," Jack urged, his voice carving through the mounting anxiety. Suddenly, the door splintered. Without thinking, Emily twirled, her instincts igniting as she clutched the weapon tightly. "Stand back!" Theo yelled, readying himself. With a breathtaking thrust against the door, it creaked open, shadows spilling forth like a tide. In that moment, clarity took hold. A choice surged from deep within Emily. The fight would demand every ounce of her spirit, but through it all, her heart thudded with a simple truth. She couldn't turn away again. With every ounce of strength, she shouted, "You want the truth? You'll have to take it from us." The attacker's gaze flickered, uncertainty creeping in. They moved forward, drawn by the stubbornness of her spirit, unwittingly binding themselves to her fierce determination. "Now!" Jack shouted, charging forward. Emily's instincts kicked in, and with the weapon raised, she was no longer the victim. She was ready to break free. In that instant of defiance, they surged as a team, Theo darting left while Emily and Jack together pushed through to the right. As chaos erupted, everything clawed for balance. Fists clashed, the metallic sound of fear echoed, and adrenaline buzzed like electric shock. Each decision brought them closer to the truth, closer to understanding what lay behind the veil of shadows that loomed ever-present in their lives. Emily, Jack, and Theo felt the chaos crystallize for just a moment, as if time had paused to watch them redefine their fates. They were soberingly aware that these last moments were their crucible, their trials to reforge a bond veered apart by time and treachery. In that critical second, as truth hung pregnant in the air, she could almost hear the whispers of their past calling out echoes of pain and remorse, the yearning for more than what they had lost. Would they find redemption and reclaim their future, or would the darkness consume them whole? As the determination snapped into place, Emily dove further into the fray, a sense of hope igniting against life's illusions, deepening through the turbulent resolve they formed together. No longer would they merely survive, they were ready to rise and fight for the truth. With each step forward, a new chapter began. Now, it's time for you to join the journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will leave you breathless. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from every single one of you, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion unfold. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.